What's up people, Catmaster here with another video. Scourge dropped, I leak started Armageddon brand Ignite. It's been a blast. I made a lot of progress during the leak start stream, and today I want to talk a little bit about the current state of the build, the goal, where the journey is going, and what still has to happen on the way there. Now, of course, I know how important it is to start off the build video with showcase of the build gameplay. So that's what we're gonna do right now. Like I said, we had a blast of a leak start stream. It was, I believe, like 20 hours, even though I hadn't slept really that much. But yeah, it was amazing and had a lot of love, support from the community, awesome raids, etc. So thanks everyone who came over to the Twitch stream at twitch.tv/CatmasterOP. I'm gonna put my camera here so you can see the map. Just quickly rolled a tier 6 tropical island. This is beyond Monster Life Frenzy chart. Nothing special, but you know, I haven't been pushing hard. I managed to get the staff already. Talking about the build in just a second, but I want you to see what the build can currently do. Do I put anything? Fortune favors the brave, why not? Actually, I need the chaos to buy something in a second, so I'm not going to invest in this mid-tier-ish map. Activation cancelled? Oh, there we go. Right, so Armageddon brand Ignite Elementalist is the name of the game. Armageddon brand is a skill that casts a brand that attaches to enemies, and while attached, it will activate periodically at a base activation frequency of now 1 second. And we're playing this as an Elementalist, so all damage can ignite and will ignite, because 100% chance to ignite. And yeah, you just walk around, put down brands, and there's a little bit of a delay between you casting the brand and the brand actually attaching and activating on the enemy, but then when it does, as you can see, massive ignite damage, and the proliferation, of course, makes it so that the strongest ignite goes through the entire pack and directly kills everything. Now, we hit 85, so this is 85 gameplay, a little bit higher level than you would want to be. I don't know, let's quickly run this map and talk a little bit more about how the build works. Now I'm using a staff. The plan is to use Calm's Heart because we got our 6 link on the staff. Luckily already hit the 6 link, that was quite clutch, but I assure you with a 5 link the damage would have been just almost as juicy. Quickly close this. Just want to make it to the boss so you guys can see. I actually forgot to do the Scourging. Scourge is an amazing mechanic, but it is fairly rippy. And even though they said that shifting will stun enemies that are nearby, it does, but the range is really small, and sometimes you just spawn in the middle of a couple of packs, but they're just outside of the stun range, and then you get blasted by them before you even have a chance to do anything. It's a little bit rough. I hope that they still adjust that aspect of the build. But other than that, it's quite fun. I've already crangled some items, as the community has coined the term, or used the term. That was once used in a meme post. And everyone's talking about Crangle League now. But yeah, in general, I would say that this is one of the better builds for the mechanic. The downside of the build is obviously the initial delay before the damage comes out, but you can combat that by actually activating the Scourge mechanic in the middle of packs where you already put down brands, and then when you do the shift, then your brands are already out. They instantly attach and they start damaging, so you don't need to cast. The character was quite prone to stun early on, and I definitely built it a little bit more offensively than I should have, and than I would have in hardcore. But, oh, I messed it up. See, this is a bad demonstration, because I have Arcanist brand, which is supposed to apply my debuffs, and the damage is way better when the debuffs are on. But if I make the mistake of casting 2 armor brands at once and they attach, I cannot override. There's no way for me to take them off the enemy, because I don't use brand recall for a lack of sockets. But I'll talk about that right now when I go with you over the original plan for the build. But before we do that, I want to quickly address one big question that has always been coming up, and that is, why are you playing Arma Brand Ignite? It's been nerfed. It lost like 250% more damage with Ignite. Yes, the Armageddon brand gem itself lost the 250% more damage with Ignite at level 20. I think it went up to 264 at level 22, and it started out at like 100 something. But that doesn't matter. The idea why that more multiplier for Ignite has been removed from the gem is because GGG wants to move away from having specific skills sort of pigeonholed into being, or Ignite being pigeonholed into being used with these specific skills that have these more multipliers. And they took off those specific more multipliers, but they buffed Ignite overall by 150%. So every Ignite in the game deals 2.5 times the damage that it dealt in 3.15. And Armageddon brand received a flat damage buff of around between 50 and 60% at all levels. And on top of that, the added damage effectiveness, the factor by which any flat added damage to spells or to like globally is scaled on skills, went up from 85% to 135%, which again is like roughly almost 60% more added damage, which is obviously quite insane. And so in the end, Armageddon brand comes out ahead. It's better by like 10% than it was before with Ignite. Now you could say that Ignite lost elemental equilibrium, right? Because all Ignite, or a lot of Ignite builds were sort of designed around elemental equilibrium, the keystone passive where you hit with one element and you debuff the resists for other elements. But that has been completely mechanically changed and moved in the tree. It now applies exposure and is in the ranger area, so this is completely irrelevant for this build. But it is also not impacting this build in any way, because Armageddon brand has a fairly high hit rate, and it would reset the elemental equilibrium and actually hurt your damage more than it helps if you were to use elemental equilibrium previously. So Armageddon brand never really worked with equilibrium, so it doesn't make any sense. And now, of course, equilibrium is completely out of the window. But you wouldn't use it before unless... mostly, I think elemental equilibrium in Ignite builds was used with like one big hitting skills like Divine Ire, or with lightning skills when you used full lightning damage builds like Arc with Arcane Cloak and Archmage to ignite via either the Elementalist all damage ignites from Shaper or Flames, or the Stormfire unique ring that allows your lightning damage to ignite. Right, and then you would only hit with lightning, debuff for fire. But why am I talking about? Elemental equilibrium is a thing of the past. It doesn't exist. I don't want to confuse you. I just wanted to address these things real quickly. And also one more nerf on the gem. Armageddon brand activation frequency, base activation frequency, went from 0.75 seconds to 1 second. As you can see, activates every 1 second while attached. This does scale with cast speed. So in the end, we have like 1.6 hit rate or something like that, 1.6 hits per second per brand. But obviously that doesn't change anything for Ignite either way, because, you know, you only have one Ignite on the enemy, and Ignites last 4 seconds. And I mean, you can have infinite amounts of Ignites on the enemy, but only the highest damage Ignite deals damage. Only one instance of Ignite will deal damage. Anyway, let's quickly go into the theoretical part where I show you the plan for the build at level 96. Oh, I accidentally clicked this. I was like, why do I have more points allocated? So this is level 96. The plan is to build the tree like this. Not much to say here, really go from fire to fire. Pick up as much life as possible, and because we're using a staff, we're going for the staff block, and with the new masteries and the new block cluster here, and some block here, some block there, and the staff block here, and some very specific unique items, we are able to actually get to block cap. You can raise the block cap by 2% here, so we can actually get to 77 attack block, currently only at 76 in this plan. Need to throw in 1% block somewhere on a rare jewel, right? I have a jewel here that is only double dot multi, does a lot for the damage, but you could have +1 staff block here. So you could reach 77 staff block. We have 75 spell block. We got recover 2% of life when you block attack damage. And that's something that previously you weren't able to get, like recover on block with a staff, because that is a mod that you can only roll on influenced shields normally. And build looking pretty good, around 500k ignite DPS. This is actually in PoB now because Armageddon brand got updated, so I don't have to use that weird band-aid fix where I add like stats to one jewel, where it's less damage with ignite and flat damage to compensate and this and that. So this is an actually accurate representation of the damage that we will deal when the build is maxed out. So like 500,000 ignite DPS, but it's important to note that Flame Surge, which I'll talk about in a later section of the video, will also boost our ignite DPS by, if I'm not wrong, 25%, because, or what, the overall DPS, because Flame Surge spawns Burning Ground that deals 25% of the ignite. But I'll talk about that later. So using Creation's Chitin, Rainbow Stride, Stone of Lasva to get the block up, and using Replica Ember Wake to get faster ignites. This reduces the ignite duration by quite a lot, so you need to get a little bit of ignite duration by just picking one node here to counteract that, reduced and increased stack additively. So we go from 90% reduced to 75% reduced, which puts our ignite duration for the Armageddon brand at 0.66 seconds. So with our hit rate of 1.6 per brand, enemies should be permanently ignited when they're only affected by one brand. We can put 2 brands in the enemy, right? We have Runebinder because we also use Runesmith, which makes enemies take 5% increased damage for each of your brands attached to them. So obviously we pick Runebinder because then they take 10% increased damage instead of just 5% increased damage. Now originally my idea was to not take ignite duration and to just cast the 2 brands right after each other, to use 2 Armageddon brands, right? But our Arcane, the Flame Surge is on an Arcanist brand now, and that is, that's better, and we don't need 2 Armageddon brand on the enemies if we just have 1 of these. I'll talk about all of this in a second. Just wanted to quickly go over the features of this build at level 96. So block cap, spell block cap, recover on block. We got 5.4k life. With Calms, only 147 increased life, but every little bit of increased life is worth a lot because Calms gives you a lot of flat. We actually reached like 630 life regen per second. I think even more. Maybe I got something wrong. I think I leveled down the vitality. Is it level 20 vitality? I remember having a little bit more life regen, but I probably missed something. Anyway, it's more than 10% of the total life pool, so pretty decent recovery. And on top of that, we also have the Mastery, where we gain 2% of our life. We recover 2% of our life whenever we ignite a non-ignited enemy, which while clearing happens quite a lot. You ignite a pack here, ignite a pack there, etc. Really, really nice sustain while clearing. While bossing, we have a baseline more than 10% life regen, so if we take a small hit, we can just walk around and we heal back up. If we take a big hit, we can use Enduring Cry, Classic, and heal up, or a Panicked Flask if we take a huge hit, so we can instantly recover a large amount of life. One more thing, we use Creation's Chitin, which interacts with crab barriers, which you gain from Aspect of the Crab, which you can craft via the Bestiary. Creation is one of the 4 Bestiary bosses, and you can get Creation's Chitin, this helmet, from him, and you can also obviously get the craft for Aspect of the Crab skill. Aspect of the Crab is a reservation that makes you gain a crab barrier every half a second. And with Creation's Chitin, First of all, crab barriers give you 1% of physical damage mitigation. You can have a actually 2%. 2% per crab barrier, and you can have a maximum of 10 crab barriers per default. And Creation's Chitin makes it so that you cannot lose crab barriers if you have lost crab barriers recently. Recently is 4 seconds. That means when you lose crab barriers, you have 4 seconds of guaranteed gaining a crab barrier every 0.5 seconds. So that means you're back at 8 crab barriers before you can reach crab barriers again. So before you can lose them again. So 16% fizz mitigation before you get hit again, and then you can get hit again and it goes down. But because you block, right? And when you block, you avoid damage, so you don't take damage. You only lose crab barriers when you take damage from a hit. I think it's when you take physical damage from a hit. I don't want to talk about it wrong, so I'm quickly going to bring up completely unprepared aspect of the crab. Just want to quickly be sure. All crab barriers are lost when you take physical damage from a hit, right? But if you block, and you don't have glancing blows or any effect where you do take damage from a blocked hit, you negate all damage from that hit. And we're block capped, so we do, if we get hit like 4 times, we could block all of those hits, we could block most of those hits. Of course, you could be unlucky and block none of those hits, but I'm saying on average, 75% of hits you will block. So you only take damage from hits every once in a while, and only when it is physical damage that you take from the hit, you lose the crab barriers, but then that hit is mitigated because you had those crab barriers, so you have up to 20% damage reduction from the crab barriers, and you have 4% physical damage reduction from endurance charges per endurance charge, so that's another 12% if you keep up your 3 endurance charges by using Enduring Cry on the regular basis. So that's 32% physical damage mitigation, plus whatever you have from your armor. So you got quite a decent amount of physical mitigation. So when you do get hit, you take physical damage, a lot of that is mitigated, and then the mitigation ramps up while you're hopefully not taking damage from hits. Now, while farming, obviously you can get hit quite frequently, and so you lose them more frequently, but I feel like while bossing, you don't usually take physical damage from a hit multiple times in like a period of 4 or 5 seconds, right? And 5 seconds is all you need to not get hit to recharge your crab barriers to maximum. So you should have that physical mitigation up most of the time. And that's pretty awesome fizz mitigation, mind you, I think. Now, it could be higher, of course. We're working on it. The build will get better. But this build, the way that it is very budget. Like in total, all the uniques together are like 5, maybe 6x completely. So very, very budget for like this endgame state of the build. Plus the rares that you need for the build are very cheap. Outside of aspect of the crab, I don't know how much that craft goes for. You can buy the beast or you can buy the craft on TFT, Forbidden Trove Discord, like a community where you can trade things in Path of Exile like Harvest Craft or stuff, like anything that can't be itemized and sold via the trade website. But yeah, this pair of gloves just has Dex and the Aspect Craft, some life, and a bench crafted fire res. You got a ring here that fixes a bunch of the resists and the stat requirement strength, another strength belt for a little bit strength, and life and basic resist. So none of this is exceptional or hard to craft, right? Like no tier 1 resistances except that all res is tier 1. That's the best all res you can have on a ring. But you know, we're not planning for anything otherworldly here, right? All these items are available. I checked multiple times on the trade. I already bought the staff. I already bought the Stone of Lazwa. Replica Ember Wake, last time I checked, was like 100 chaos. Rainbow Stride is like whatever, like a handful of chaos, 4 or 5 maybe. It's a very common unique, and you don't need to spend a lot on it. Calm's Heart, oddly, weirdly, first day Calm's Heart was like 8C and now went up to like more than 30, which I chalk down to chaos inflation, really. And the fact, obviously, it doesn't have sockets, so on day 1, most people want to use a chest piece for the sockets, so now more and more people get links on their weapons, or, you know, they use a staff, or they have like a pseudo 5-link helmet, so Calms goes up in value because more people can actually fit it into their builds, plus they have more chaos to pay for it, the chaos inflation. Creation's Chitin, I checked earlier, was like 30C, there was only one, I hope I can still get that. before it's gone. Or other than that, like, I mean, there will be more people are farming beasts. I'm in softcore trade this time around, so I should be able to get that. I should have bought the one, but I didn't have chaos, and I didn't want to do off-stream trading. I was preparing videos and working on some other content. But yeah, very, very solid concept for the build, I think, personally, for day 2 or 3. And we can see where we can go from there, right? Like, there is maybe some improvements that we can still make once we get there. But this is the state that I envision, and with this state of the build, I think I should be able to do like all map tiers, all map bosses, Shaper, Elder, Cirrus, Conquerors. You know, it will take a while. The damage is not the highest, but you have very high damage uptime. You just apply the brands, they keep on applying the ignites. You can circle around the bosses. Really good. And the leveling, Armageddon brand and Cremation is known as like one of the best leveling builds in the game. So absolutely no problem there. Like, it's one of the favorite racing builds, actually, and it's really good. I'll make a detailed video, step by step, explaining the leveling, just like I did the one 2 years ago for Orpa Storm's Wave of Conviction. I learned from the mistakes that I made in the video. If you want to give me some insight, what you think I could improve about it, if you remember that video still, or like if there's something that you want to tell me that I should include in the video, make sure to leave it in the comments down below. I'll read them all. I always read all of them, even though I don't remember to react to all of them, but just saying. And, well, that's basically the plan. So where are we now? I got this. I got the staff. I was super lucky to 6-link it. I bought the staff for 1.3x. Exactly, I paid 1x and 20c. I got 1x early on for trading from Chaos. I bought it for 67c. I made some sales, like an Essence that I corrupted for Essence of Hysteria that sold for 50 Chaos. I sold an Abyssus for like 9 Chaos. And yeah, when I had the money to buy an X, I bought an X directly because I know those will go up in value while Chaos constantly go down as more and more people have more and more Chaos. And the economy inflates. And yeah, lucky enough to 6-link it. Oh yeah, there's a second X I got from a Blighted map. Bought the staff right after I got the X in the Blighted map. 6-link it right after. Streamer RNG, I know. That's what people say. Maybe I'm just, you know, maybe I'm just lucky. Maybe I'm skilled, who knows. But using that, I got some filler rares here. Life, good resists. I got life, temple mod life actually, with fizz reduction and a resist. Decent chest piece for until we get Calms. For Calms, obviously, we need to still fix some sockets. Ring with life and resists. Death Rush, because I managed to fit it in for now, so we have Onslaught consistently on kill. Filler Amulet, really with just attributes and resist. This is due to be replaced really soon. And we got a life belt with resists, nothing special. Gloves, life, resist, boots. Cannot be frozen on the boots, because the cannot be frozen in Pantheon is gated behind upgrading the Soul of the Brine King. But once we get that, we can change the boots for Rainbow Stride. And then we have freeze immune from here. For shock, we currently have reduced effect of shock from Gaurkan, 60%. And I got another 60% reduced effect of shock from here, I believe. 20, 20, 10, 50. 50% reduced effect of shock. So yeah, 100% reduced effect of shock. I'm not entirely sure. Like, I heard some contradicting opinions. I think the general idea in the community is that works for most shocks, but there are some shocks that have increased effect, and increased and reduced cancel each other out. So you'd need more reduced effect in order to really be immune to all shocks. But obviously for the average shock from the average monster in maps, that already does a big trick. And I think I still have shock remove on my life flask. So if I take a big hit, I'll use the instant life flask, and then I'm shock immune for 12 seconds if I got shocked. So, you know, effectively shock immune, right? Like, sure, you can get insta-bursted, but if you don't get insta-bursted, you use the instant flask, you remove the shock, and you're immune for 12 seconds. That's great. Tree is here, exactly. I'm currently running Vitality and Malevolence and Anger already. and soon about to fit in the aspect. Might have to level down the vitality if I don't get an Enlighten. I don't know how expensive Enlighten is going to be, and it's going to take a while to get that to level 3. But level 2 should already be enough to free up some stuff. We got reduced effectiveness, increased mana reservation efficiency is the stat for vitality, like 100 here, and then the global increased mana reservation efficiency. I'm confused because it used to be reduced mana reserve was the name of the stat. But yeah, that's what I currently got. I have pretty bad defense. It's okay now that we got 30% chance to block from the staff. And I'm going to pick up more staff block now. But like while leveling, it was pretty painful. Do I still have my leveling ones? I think I wanted to show you guys the ones that I used for leveling. But I don't think I have them anymore. I was using vendor recipe crafted flat damage ones. Fire damage to spells. Where are they? Do I still have them? 1 chaos. Sale. I think I either vendored them or put them into the stash and someone in the guild used them. Oh no, here, this is one, for example, right? So I crafted flat fire damage for spells with the recipe. Rare ruby ring. Magic wand with 3-link already, so you don't have to free-link it afterwards. And an orb of alteration gives you exactly that mod on a wand, tier 6. And then I used this in the Scourge machine in order to get a pair of Scourge implicits. These implicits are not very good. Here, this one was the good one. No, this is also flat. Which one? This one was the good one. No, this is also reduced. Damn, where's the good one? I had one that was really good. This one has reduced spell damage. Actually, the flat damage is better than having the increased spell damage. Reduced and increased cancel each other out, so 45% reduced is not as bad. But yeah, been using wands like that for a really long time. And eventually started using scepters. I bought the scepters from trade for 2C. I don't think I still have a picture of both scepters. Wait, here. But I sold them both for 3C. That's the kind of scepter I mean, right? I searched for something with fire damage over time multiplier on a scepter base for increased elemental damage, because spell damage does not scale your ignites with the brands. That's also the reason why we're pathing out here, right? Because the ignite applied with a spell does not scale with spell damage increases because it does not count as spell damage. The flat damage added to spells is added to the base damage of the spell, and the ignite scales of the base damage, but the ignite is not spell damage, therefore it doesn't scale with increased spell damage. Counterintuitively, though, brand damage scales your ignites, because brand damage is any damage dealt by brand skills or skills triggered by a brand, and that includes the ignite. But, yeah. Spell damage doesn't, just like when you play a bleed build, right? Attack damage, even though you apply the bleed with an attack damage does not affect the ignite, the ailment caused by the attack. Also, when you play attack ignite builds or something like that. Just wanted to clarify on that. And then another important thing in the build is I don't use brand recall, like I said earlier. Brand recall is a spell that would allow me to recall the brands from their location, so detach them from enemies, or like pull them from wherever they linger around, like here, and pull them into a pack, and then directly activate them. That's the great thing about brand recall. It directly activates, so you can get around the long activation time and kind of cut a little bit of the delay out every now and then when you can use the brand recall. So that would be really cool to use eventually. Recall, where is it? Here, brand recall. So recalls your brands, detaching them from enemy, increasing attachment range. Spends a portion of each recall's brand cost to cause it to activate. Yeah, exactly. It causes it to activate, but it spends the cost again, which is not a problem in my build, but Just they added that at some point because of the Archmage builds. Would be nice to fit it in. In the current plan for the build, I don't have any space for it, right? Like it doesn't fit. When we use Calm's Heart, we're lacking sockets on the chest piece. Just won't work. But it is what it is. The build works fine without brand recall. Just eventually it would be nice to somehow have that. Maybe in an unset ring, right? Okay, one more thing I want to talk about before we end the video. 30-minute video incoming, is Flame Surge. So Flame Surge was hyped by GGG, or like announced by GGG, to be the new single target support for Ignite builds, to be able to scale their damage into single target situations. And we didn't really know beforehand whether the actual effect of Flame Surge would scale with support gems. They told us that Flame Surge would cause hits on ignited enemies to create burning ground no more than once every 2 seconds, and the burning ground would deal 25% of the fire damage per second of ignite affecting enemy. And now they clarified it with the line, your damage modifiers don't apply to this burning ground. But before the patch, we didn't actually know that. And so I was like, okay, if it actually scales with supports, then you want to run it in a 4-link. And I didn't want to cast my Flame Surge manually, right? I don't know whether you realize, but Flame Surge is like a melee range spell that is like a jet flame, like a little poof, poof. And I guess it ranges quite far, especially with Elementalist 60% Ink AoE, but it's still like not melee range, but it's like I don't want to have to aim and go in anywhere near bosses, right? I don't want that. So I originally thought I'm gonna put it on a trap, gonna run an old school Flame Surge trap for single target, and then link that up with burning damage and elemental focus. But since now we know that your damage modifiers don't apply to the burning ground, you know that no matter what you put on there, less damage, increased damage, more damage, reduced damage, it doesn't scale the damage dealt by the burning ground at all. So now I just slap it on an Arcanist's brand, which is a brand skill support skill gem that allows you to cast a brand that will then cycle through the linked spells and cast them from the brand position. And I decided to not only put my Arcanist brand on there, but also automate my Wave of Conviction for exposure, which applies minus 15 base elemental resistance of highest damage taken, in this case fire. So it reduces enemy resist by 15%, but then because we're elementalist, it reduces it by another 25, so that's minus 40, and then we get the mastery, the fire mastery, where fire exposure you apply, inflict applies an extra minus 5% to fire resistance, so we're at minus 45% resistance from the exposure from Wave of Conviction alone. And that's not subject to curse reduced effect, right? To reduced effectiveness of curses. Like when you reduce enemy resists with flammability, like flammability says it reduces minus 43% fire resist. Cursed enemies have minus 43, but on something like Shaper or Elder or the Guardians or like Cirrus, these enemies have built-in 66% reduced effect of curses. So their resist will only get reduced by a third of that, so like 14% in this case. So not quite as strong as it seems when you read it, but that doesn't apply to exposure because exposure is not a curse, and that resist reduction from the exposure is just glorious. And really, you can see it when I do a boss properly, right, with the exposure on. When I cast the Arcanist brand first and then the Armor brand, the damage is insane and ticks down. I did Conquerors and they died within their first rotation. Like they didn't phase transition. I just apply my stuff, I walk around, and they die really, really fast. And that's the plan. Like we're gonna be able to roughly scale the damage by. We're still gonna be able to almost get twice the damage that I deal currently with the build. So that should be more than enough for everything that we want to do. All right? Well, that's about it. That's all I got for you today. If you enjoy videos like this, make sure you leave a like and a comment to tell me like what you would like to hear about next, what I missed out on mentioning, or what you would like me to cover in a future video. And also check out my stream at twitch.tv/CatmasterOP. Live almost every day, but at least a couple of times a week. And most important, we have a podcast coming up. Tomorrow night, I almost forgot this one. Tomorrow night, Octavian is going to join us. Not just Octavian, but also Big Ducks and Trixt are going to join us for Faded Connections episode number 65. Monday night, 6 p.m. GMT. Why does it say 18 p.m.? Wow. How did I fail that much? Anyway. Awesome podcast coming in. Check out awesome people. We're going to talk all about the league start, skills, mechanics, enemies, the rewards. Everything that the heart desires. It will be uploaded in full to this YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to the YouTube. Ring the bell for a notification whenever I make uploads. And you can also listen to Faded Connections on all podcast audio platforms. fadedconnections.buzzsprout.com. You can click this link tree and you can find the podcast anywhere. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Amazon Music, Stitcher, and so on. I'm not going to read them all out. Anyway, thanks so much for watching and staying until this very end. A big shout out to the people who come to the stream and actually subscribe or renew their Twitch subscriptions. Keep renewing their Twitch subscriptions. Make financial contributions. We had a big donation yesterday from Master Blaster. Thanks. And of course, thanks to the people supporting me on Patreon. I really do appreciate it. And you enable me to do the stuff that I do. So keep doing. And I'll keep doing. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful league start.